Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, the alleged survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes are speaking up, and they are not satisfied with the release of the Epstein files thus far. Surprise, surprise. Millions of pages of documents were released a week ago. These files contain emails and also uncorroborated investigative documents, and they're having a profound impact. Friends, associates, and even casual acquaintances of Epstein who are named in the files are under pressure to resign from their jobs. Now, obviously, anyone who engaged in the sexual abuse of children should not merely lose their job, they should go to prison. But that's the problem, isn't it? The files inform our understanding of the very bad judgment of some high-profile people who kept in contact with Epstein, Bill Gates, Steve Bannon, Peter Mandelson, but they do not provide evidence of sex crimes committed by anyone other than Epstein himself. And so, the so-called survivors want the federal government to release even more files. In a new PSA released on Super Bowl Sunday, they assail Attorney General Pam Bondi for dragging her feet, not releasing more files, and failing to prosecute Epstein associates who raped children. Let's watch part of that.
After years of being kept apart, we're standing together.
Standing together.
Because this girl deserves the truth.
Because she deserves the truth.
Because we all deserve the truth.
Now, I'm the last person to defend Pam Bondi, who has botched virtually every aspect of the Epstein files release, mostly by overpromising and then underdelivering. Remember when she said the client list was on her desk and would be released shortly? Well, there is no client list. That's because Epstein himself is the sexual abuser. There's no evidence, none whatsoever, that he trafficked little girls to other rich and powerful men. There's ample evidence he himself had sex with teenage girls and was rightly prosecuted for it. And then he went right back to it after his incredibly lenient sentence. But these files do not show what the Epstein conspiracy theorists have insisted, that Epstein was in charge of a cabal of elite pedophiles. Now, these victims say there were other men involved and that they want Pam Bondi to take action. Okay, well, forgive me for asking the obvious. Why do you, the victims, need the government to release more of their uncorroborated records? Why can't you just tell us who the other perpetrators are? Is it just me, or is anyone else getting tired of this? I want the truth, and the survivors are the ones who have it. We don't need the government files. Just tell us. By the way, the problem with the government files now has become perfectly obvious. Investigators wrote up all sorts of outlandish reports from crazy people, as is their job. These accusations are in the Epstein files, but they are utterly without merit and without proof. They're gossip, slander, and now they're causing people to lose their jobs. Honestly, I'm forced to concede. President Trump had a point when he said, releasing all these files is going to result in a lot of people who had absolutely nothing to do with Epstein getting embarrassed. It's going to result in a feeding frenzy of misleading or outright false accusations. The belief that there are many other wealthy people, friends of Epstein, who preyed on children for sex and paid Epstein to procure the kids, it's just that, it's a belief. It's not supported by any evidence we're seeing. Frankly, the people who are still looking for that evidence, who are convinced it's out there somewhere, they seem to have partisan motivations, by which I mean they're mostly Democrats who are convinced that eventually they'll find evidence that Trump was complicit in Epstein's crimes. They won't find any evidence of that. They won't find evidence the Clintons were involved either. I'm highly doubtful they'll find much evidence that anyone else was involved either. Now, I'm happy to be proven wrong, and if I'm wrong, I hope I'm proven wrong. Let's lock these abusers behind bars. But if the previous 3 million pages of documents are any indication, we will not find evidence, solid evidence, that anyone other than Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jean-Luc Brunel were complicit in sexual abuse. And 2 of those people are dead, and the 3rd is already in prison. So if this isn't case closed, then I think it is actually time for the alleged victims to tell us who else was involved. Tell us directly. Not using innuendo or veiled references, not by beseeching the government to tell us more of what we already know. If you feel you've been silenced, then please unmute yourself. So we didn't really get to talk last week, because you were out of town, about what I'm describing now as this files release fiasco.
Yeah.
I don't know, Lindsay. I think I've changed my mind completely. What was the point of this? These millions of pages of documents naming people in a context having almost nothing to do with Epstein, and now people are losing their jobs, and it's a witch hunt. There's no evidence in any of what they've released of sexual abuse of children by anyone other than Jeffrey Epstein himself. And that's what I was promised. Remember, cabal of elite pedophiles? What happened to that? There's no evidence. Now you're telling me, these victims are telling me, oh, that they're still keeping back the other stuff. I don't believe this anymore.
So both things can be true, right? You can request the victims. I thought your request to the victims, if they are able to speak, they name the people that they want to accuse of these crimes, name them. I agree with that. But I also think keeping pressure on the Department of Justice, which is now legally required to release the rest of the documents, is also imperative. They released 3 million, but there also are 3 million more. We know there's 6 million total. And this is an organization that released the ad during the Super Bowl or around the Super Bowl so that people can pay attention to this and not let off the gas. I think that they're well within their right to do that. They literally acquire funds to fight for sex trafficking cases like this one. And so it's an organization that put all their money behind the most and maximum amount of eyeballs seeing this. And so I'm not going to look at the victims and say, why are you taking part of this conversation? Because they are this conversation. It's the biggest conversation about possible sex trafficking, particularly regarding children, that we've ever had in this country probably. And people want to know the connections. So when you ask about, outside of them naming who may also be involved, because I'd love to hear that. It doesn't need to be Clinton. It doesn't need to be Trump. Who else may be involved? We know banks were involved with a lot of the money that was being pushed around, and that's why they were sued.
But I'm not interested in the money. No. I don't want to know the money. No, I was told.
You don't want to know.
You said possible sex trafficking of children. There is no evidence of that.
Right. So
it's like possible alien attack. Maybe there's alien attack evidence in these files. Possible theory. I'm sick of that. No one would accept this in any other context. It's just BS.
There are some big reasons why I think releasing all 6 million documents matter. There are people that are getting named randomly that are also getting offended, like Russell Wilson, who's like, wait, I almost bought a plane from Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't even know it was his plane. Why am I in here? But you want to identify who potential co-conspirators might be. That's essential. That's the whole point of releasing all the files. Let the public see them. And yes, the victim should say whomever else they think needs to be prosecuted. You also want to understand why he operated with impunity for so many years. That's a question that maybe you're done with, but a lot of people want to understand why he was given so little time and why he operated in the way he did freely. And the third thing is that you want to restore public trust.
That question is already answered.
You want to restore public trust in institutions. People think that many institutions failed miserably by allowing Jeffrey Epstein to operate in the way that he did. And so the way to restore public trust for the American people that do want to see this, and the bipartisan representatives, Massie and Rokana, that are calling for this, well, then they're asking for it too. It's not just Democrats. It's not just Republicans. People want to see this. So you're just saying that this is Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, these are all different people from all perspectives across the aisle.
People aren't satisfied that the earth is not flat. I don't care at this point. If you're going to make extreme claims, at some point the burden is on you to present a shred of evidence to substantiate.
So no part of this feels a little bit cover-up-y. When we just saw, CBS was reporting in one of the documents that an orange-colored shape was moving through the staircase towards his isolated cell.
Orange-colored shape?
Yes, so obviously another inmate in a jumpsuit. They said no one was in Jeffrey Epstein's cell the night that he was killed. But now there's documents that are written down, official documents that completely contradict what we were told.
You're shifting. You're doing.
We're not shifting. No, we're not.
That's about his death. I was told.
Yes, but if it's a cover-up and you're trying to cover up all the details, that's one part of it. It shouldn't sit well with
Show
you that
me
we're
the
being
evidence
lied to.
that he procured children for elites to have sex with. There's no evidence.
Across
None.
the board.
Zero.
Everyone wants to
Zero.
know all the information they can about Jeffrey Epstein.
The evidence of that is as compelling as the evidence that he was a space invader.
No, was he part of a sex trafficking ring? Was he working with foreign governments? Why he was able to operate with impunity?
Are you part of a sex trafficking ring? There's no evidence of that. So at some point you're just saying.
No, I never got. I'm not a convicted pedophile. What are you saying?
Well, okay, but I'm not. But Epstein himself is guilty. That is not in contention. But we were told that he was trafficking girls to other people. And that there's no evidence. There's nothing.
So then just release the other 3 million documents and we'll be done with it. Clinton said they'll testify in a public hearing. So let Trump testify and then everyone can be done with it.
Something tells me that 3 million more pages of documents will not satisfy any of the people.
I don't know why you want to brush off the claims that I just mentioned, that we were being lied to about the way he may have died possibly. That sounds like a cover-up to me. And then why? You said you're interested in the possible foreign government connection. That's the one piece you might be interested in. So why can't I lump that all into one that is the case of Jeffrey Epstein? Like, why do you not want to have these answers?
Central Epstein contention was cabal of pedophiles who were raping children procured by Jeffrey Epstein. He was the head of that. That's what we were told. It is not true, or at least there's no evidence of it. And that... is a notable fact in the discussion of this case because it was a very salacious, scandalous accusation.
Robby, what's on your radar?
I'm sure you'll love this one, Lindsay. Princess Jasmine is ready for her close-up. Jasmine Crockett, of course, released a new ad over the weekend in which she slammed President Trump and promised to fight back because she's such a warrior. Take a look.
The system is broken. Our communities are being terrorized. People are hurting. But Texas has a warrior who's fighting back. A champion for us, our votes, our rights. It drives the president crazy. So they tried to draw her out of Congress because they thought it would take away our power. They were wrong.
I'm Jasmine Crockett, and I approve this message.
Gotta admit, I love the comic book graphics and the force lightning. But did you see that final shot where Crockett's standing side by side with an army of people, presumably Texas voters? Well, no, that was apparently AI generated. I guess she couldn't find enough real supporters. She also couldn't be bothered to write down her actual policy ideas and put them on her website. A CNN reporter caught that in the issues section of her campaign site next to her proposed plan containing the placeholder text, which read, "Write out your bullet points here. Anything from a sentence to a paragraph works." That website has since been corrected. Now, I guess some of those great ideas still forthcoming. Now, look, it's perfectly possible that Jasmine Crockett defeats James Tallarico, the obviously more electable and more impressive moderate Democratic candidate by far. If she does, she'll face an even more uphill battle to get elected as a U.S. Senator in the reliably red state of Texas. That's because even among progressives, she has expressed deeply off-putting and identity-coded and, frankly, even offensive statements, like her complaining about mediocre white boys and saying that Latinos who voted for Trump have a slave mentality. Ugly stuff, revealing. And of course, she's happy to be boldly, stridently wrong to the point of outright deception. Remember when she accused Republican Lee Zeldin and others of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein? And then we found out that it was actually a different Jeffrey Epstein. Our Jeffrey Epstein was already dead. She was defiant about that and refused to apologize, even doubling down and saying it was perfectly fair. She actually addressed this again recently during an interview with the progressive media site Vox, where the interviewer politely suggested that maybe this was something, just maybe, she should walk back. Nope. Here was Crockett's response.
But you know, when I see the moment on the House where you seem to accuse Republican Lee Zeldin of taking money from Jeffrey Epstein, but it seemed like if it was not the same person, I wonder, like, is there times in which the rhetoric goes too far? Are there times in which you should say, you know, maybe I messed that one up?
No, not in this environment. I don't. I think that, we are really in uncharted territory.
So I hear your argument that you're reflecting the urgency necessary, and so that's why you won't give an inch.
Correct.
Did you catch that? The journalist really lets her off the hook there. He says she's reflecting the urgency of the moment, which is why she feels empowered to lie and to deceive. We'll see how that works come primary time. Now, Lindsay, dear Lindsay,
yes,
you said yesterday when we discussed, I believe in your lens, we discussed that really awful Obama's video.
Yes.
And you said that Trump who said it was wrong and took it down, it was a mistake, but didn't explicitly say the words, "I'm sorry." You were pretty harsh on him about that.
Yeah, and when Jasmine Crockett
didn't even admit
Lee
a
Zeldin of the
mistake.
wrong Epstein, yes, I disagree with that. She went on The View and said, I never said Jeffrey Epstein,
right,
the exact pedophile.
She didn't admit it was, not only will she not apologize, she won't even admit it was a mistake.
Yes, she just said, I just was suggesting we need to look into that.
Should you maybe have not done that? Her response, no.
The difference between me and anyone else is always going to be who can't just call out a spade. A spade is that I can. And so she should have apologized for that. But I think what you're critiquing is like not policy. It's like what's happening on the website, like process critiques. So you're trying to dig into anything you can, like historical footage of her saying the wrong Epstein, to try to tie it to present day. That was months ago.
I'm not going to let this one go.
You don't have to let it go. You can keep it going.
Funny.
It's funny to you, but you can keep going. But I'm saying the policy is not the thing that I hear you critiquing. And so her website has a mistake and an error, but President Trump released a great healthcare plan that had absolutely nothing. So at least on her website, she listed, he said nothing.
Of a plan.
No, he doesn't. You know that was trash. I sat here with Amber, who's even more vehemently a defender of President Trump and said, there's nothing there. So I don't think you think there's something there. She talked about specific things.
There, huh?
Yeah, Amber said, so you can't even, don't go further than that. I mean, come on. So she talked about student debt relief. She talked about asking all insurers to fully cover people for their benefits and do full coverage. She also talks about boosting substance abuse treatment. But you picked out that she left in text on a graphic, but you also will excuse.
Insert idea here.
And if you think that Jasmine Crockett is writing her website, right, but you also excuse that the president's not tweeting out his tweets, then come on now. You're not being fair also. So you can say that a clerical issue like this is not actually reflective of policies when the president and his administration is not releasing one lick of information about what their health care plans are. So that is not a fair criticism. Also, I think that people are scared of Jasmine Crockett. She has this bravado about her. She's a national name. She might break through with the apathetic voters of Texas. As you know, in most elections, Texas voters show up about 50% or less. And so she has an opportunity to break through and be that candidate that gets people out to vote and motivates them. And even you who are interested in her graphics on the screen, that might be the one factor that gets somebody to consider looking into her record. And it's not like the woman hasn't been in Congress for years. She has a long-standing record that shows all the things that she's accomplished and voted on. So if you're confused about where she stands, look at her last few votes and you can see exactly where she stands. Don't look at text on screen. That's a mistake, copy and paste probably from ChatGPT. I don't care about that. That's not policy.
Yes,
Jasmine Crockett is running on policy.
I don't love the idea of politicians using AI to supplement their base of support. Like this is like the Battle of Helm's Deep or
Your
something.
best friend, Kevin O'Leary, loves the idea of AI, right?
I like
interviewed
the
him and he
idea
went
of AI.
viral about using AI as extra. So why can't she use AI? Okay, so she had 20 people behind her in real life and then 1,000 in AI. Like, okay, you want her to pay 1,000 people to come out and use campaign funds on 1,000 extras?
You just be honest.
Why? You want her to get...
Why?
No, 1,000 people probably like Jasmine Crockett. I say that to be true just by the 1,000 likes she gets on any given day on tweets. So
That's
therefore...
me liking them. I'm liking them so I can flag them. Sorry, if I ever like your tweet, it doesn't necessarily mean I agree with your tweet. It means I'm putting it in my save for later file.
There's a save button also that you can
use the like function for that.
You know what I'll tell you? It seems a little bit like you're scrambling. It seems like you just want to find something.
Me?
Yeah, you're scrambling.
I'm scrambling.
Yeah, because people are like, oh,
Am I
love
scrambling?
Yeah, I feel like people are like, I'd love if Jasmine Crockett, and they're saying that because they wouldn't really love. It's like people say, I love if Mom Donnie won, and then he won.
No,
I
want her to be the candidate because I think she's more likely to lose.
But everyone said that about Mom Donnie. You know, let's talk
I didn't
about
say that about Mom Donnie.
Well, let's talk about unelectable candidates. Trump was at one time the unelectable candidate. John Fetterman in Pennsylvania was at one time the unelectable candidate because they're likely to lose. You know that? And guess what? Both of them have been elected. And so this rhetoric around people that you might be scared of whether they come
I
into
was
position.
surprised Fetterman won despite his medical problems at the time.
And I was surprised President Trump won despite a slew of things that we can go over.
Okay, but we're not talking about the nation at large. We're talking about just Texas.
So you might be surprised if Jasmine Crockett wins. And I think that is scary to a lot of people who don't like her.
You know what?
And she fights fire with fire. And people don't like that she's as sassy as our president. If you accept that behavior from him, you got to accept it from her.
You know what I'm surprised about?
What are you surprised
This is the second day in a row this week where we have actually matched. And you did not comment on it. Because you always say we're matching, and we never are. But today we actually are, and yesterday, if you go back and look, we were matching as well. And you didn't say anything.
You know what? I love when people change the topic because they know Jasmine Crockett might win.
I want to get that in there before we proceeded to more serious discussion topics.
Robby, what's on your radar?
So one more point from me, and then I'll promise I'll be done, about the halftime show wars, which are dividing conservatives and liberals. Yesterday, my co-host, Lindsay, argued that Bad Bunny was undeniably the more successful performer and was watched by more than 150 million people, whereas the Turning Point USA halftime show, which streamed on YouTube, was viewed by just 5 million people. Now, it's true, the conservative hostility toward Bad Bunny, whose provocative statements against ICE and against immigration enforcement have alienated right-leaning NFL fans, did not make a sizable dent in the audience for the Super Bowl halftime show, which is reliably watched by millions of people every year. But it should be noted that as a result of its counter-programming, TPUSA's YouTube channel added 1 million subscribers, and that's huge. It's certainly the biggest audience increase for a political channel lately. The channel now has 6.5 million subscribers, so that extra million that they just gained is a huge chunk of their overall total. No way around it. It would be a big win for TPUSA, regardless of whether you personally liked Kid Rock's performance. And I say this with some frequency, but it bears repeating. YouTube is the future of television. If you're not on YouTube, I don't know what you're doing. YouTube has won the streaming wars. It is over. Non-YouTube platforms will be scrambling to keep up in the near future. That includes traditional television providers, cable providers, other streaming platforms. I can tell you, if I put out a video on YouTube that added 1 million subscribers to my channel or to the Hills channel, we would consider that a massive success. I'm not alone. Any political media organization or commentator would feel the same way. Again, YouTube is where this is all headed. It's really difficult to build a channel from scratch or to significantly increase your subscriber numbers. The live stream of TPUSA's All-American Halftime Show itself has by now received more than 20 million views. There's 5 million to begin with, but you can go back and watch it. It's got 20 million. That's a massive number. Take a look.
Turning Point USA's All-American Halftime Show hitting over 20 million views on YouTube, with Turning Point reporting between 40 and 50 million views. Tuned in across all platforms. Headliner Kid Rock joining Laura Ingraham to tout the show's success and to discuss why he chose to perform his cover of Cody Johnson's Till I Can't.
I knew they wanted to have a program that's great on, family and faith and great music. And I did it to honor him and his fans because he wasn't able to do it. So I said, well, he's going to have a lot of fans. Let's try to play one of his songs.
Again, you don't have to like Kid Rock or to like Turning Point USA or to like the performance, but 20 million views on YouTube is nothing to sneeze at. Fewer than 1% of videos get more than 100,000 views, and fewer than 0.1% get more than 10 million. In the streaming wars, a battle for your attention that will dominate the decade as traditional sources of revenue for television companies dries up and everybody moves online, this was a huge, huge victory for alternative media and for alternative content. And I felt like I should make that point, Lindsay, because, oh my God.
Oh
my God.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay,
sorry.
you can be falling asleep. You can be poo-pooing this.
No, I'm
but
not.
No
I'm
one.
not. Sorry, I hadn't got a lot of.
20 million. Oh my God. 20 million views is a huge success. 1 million subscribers added is a huge success. If you said that was going to happen, if you said you were going to get a tenth of that, you would still do this. That's crazy. It's great. So in this narrative that this was some blowout, that nobody watched it, that it did very badly, of course more people watched the Super Bowl. They were watching the Super Bowl. They left their TV on.
No, the
people did not.
was halftime numbers that were the highest in history, but go off.
Because people left their TVs on.
People turned them on. More people watched the halftime than the actual game. Most people complained that the game was actually boring and not that interesting.
Well, people had the game on, and then there are some people, you're right, who are not watching the game and just turned on for the Super Bowl. But that's not like, that's not all due to Bad Bunny. But I'm not trying to malign Bad Bunny. I had no problem with the performance. I really don't. But, and I didn't, Kid Rock, I watched it finally, and the lip syncing was really bad. Did I think it was technically that impressive? I actually didn't. But 20 million people watched it on YouTube, and it added 1 million subscribers to their page, which is amazing. We know that's amazing. We know YouTube numbers. Our show's on YouTube. I can tell you that is a huge success. So good for them.
You know that song, like, we are the champions.
Yeah, I know it quite well.
No time for losing. Okay, this feels like we have to celebrate the loser. This is an L. It doesn't, I don't care.
It's not a zero-sum game.
NFL had, 67 million views on the YouTube video, and that was yesterday. Okay, it's still not comparative. We get it. Turning Points has a popular channel. They probably gained 1 million subscribers, too, over at the NFL to watch this game. Or Apple Music. He had way more millions of streams on the catalog that they put together that reference what he performed at the actual Super Bowl. What are you talking about? Stop trying to, no, I know, but we keep talking about, like, Kid Rock did an interview. And he keeps talking about, or not Kid Rock, everyone else around the situation did an interview and said, we have to look at the amount of people per household. So we got 5 million on that first night. There were probably 3 or 4 people per YouTube screen. Okay, there were probably 10 or 20 people per party to celebrate the big game. So if we want to multiply 135 by 10, sure, then the numbers are even more drastically different. These arguments are exactly like a participation trophy. Since I have a kid and who's going to lose sports games, you know what I'm going to tell her? You lost this one. Try again. Dust yourself off and try again. No, because they framed it as a competitive thing.
I'm not framing it that way.
No, Turning Point did. The All-American, other option, Like the one that we were watching wasn't American.
You're deluding
and
yourself.
you took an
This
L.
is a huge success for Turning Point.
No,
huge
no,
success.
but it's not a huge success for the message they were trying to send to the
massive
NFL.
success.
Nothing happened. Nobody turned off the NFL. The NFL had its highest ratings ever for Super Bowl. So what was the point? People who like Kid Rock watch Kid Rock.
The point is they added 1 million subscribers to their YouTube channel.
Okay.
They had 20 million people watching.
And they paid millions
That's
for a
huge
show to happen.
success.
Congratulations. Like every time you do something that benefits your business, you can do that every day. But when you put it up against
You
the Super
cannot
Bowl,
just add 1 million.
No, you can benefit your business in any way, have a concert any day. They decided to go up against the Super Bowl and lost in that particular
It's not
competition.
that easy to add massive.
Okay. And it's not that easy to compete with the Super Bowl or one of the most streamed artists of our generation.
You're right.
And
it's
so
not,
they
and
learned
they
that
did.
quickly
And
that
they
this
did.
ain't the 90s.
It was
and
perfectly
nobody cares
competitive.
about Kid Rock besides the 20 million people that watched it from the news
20
channel
million.
that collected it and said, you know what, I'm going to take a clip to say how trash this was with the lip singing.
And they all subscribe just to trash it.
I don't know. I don't know why people subscribe there, but I know one thing's for sure. Bad Bunny blew that out of the
This is
water.
delusional.
And I'm not going to give any
Delusional.
participation trophy just because they lost in trying to find ways to reframe the story.
Okay.
The framing
I would
was,
gladly accept
we
the
turn
participation trophy of 1 million
The
additional
framing was turn the
subscribers.
TV off.
So would you.
The framing was turn the TV off and come over here and watch something that's all American. People did not do that. Sorry. That's an L.
Insane.
But you did gain 6 million subscribers. Congratulations. Enjoy those people. Keep giving them Kid Rock.
An insane
Keep giving them Kid Rock.
rejection of reality.
No, keep
but
giving them
that
Kid
we
Rock.
will, I guess,
It's an insane
talk
rejection of
about.
reality that you have to move the goalpost to figure out a way to make it look like a win. That's the insane reality for the other side, is to continue to move.
is a
what the
huge
no,
win.
the goal was
And
to
any
affect
political
the
channel
NFL's ratings.
that had this increase in subscribers,
But that wasn't the
that
goal
had
in
a
the
video
beginning.
that did this well, would be touting this as a huge success. They would be telling donors or advertisers, depending on their business model, it would go in their year-end report as the success of the century for the organization.
That wasn't the stated goal in the beginning. The stated goal was to get people to watch their show instead of the NFL. Did not do that.
All right, when I say my goal is, world conquest, and I settle for having a video perform very well on the channel, I'm still happy with it, okay? Even though I have not yet conquered the entire media.
Robby, first, what's on your radar?
Well, Representative Thomas Massie is demanding answers from Attorney General Pam Bondi and others, whom he says are still hiding the truth of the Epstein files from the public. In an interview with Zach Weissmuller, my colleague at Reason Magazine, Massie explained why he is willing to have this fight even if it costs him his job in Congress. Take a look.
Politician in my state who is President Trump. Obviously, it'd be a whole lot easier politically to get reelected if I just did what he wanted and ignored the Epstein files and called them a hoax. But I'm not willing to do that. I've met with the survivors. This is personal to me now. And so, it's true that my political career is on the line, my political life, but my own health and well-being could very well be too. I've upset a lot of billionaires who obviously aren't of high moral character and have done some really shady stuff.
Massie's one of the most libertarian-leaning members of Congress and also the foremost advocate, along with Representative Ro Khanna, of releasing the Epstein files. He's regularly made appearances alongside purported survivors of Epstein and demanded the Department of Justice provide information on sexual abusers who participated in Epstein's crimes. Massie and Khanna accused the feds of failing to properly disclose documents relating to Epstein, which is a violation of the law, either due to incompetence or maliciousness. Now, it seems clear that unlike so many other political actors who've taken up the cause of Epstein disclosure for self-serving partisan reasons, namely a quest to disparage the reputations of either the Clintons or Donald Trump, depending on one's own partisan valence, Massie and Khanna are engaged in a sincere effort to arrive at the truth. Their complaints that DOJ has mishandled Epstein transparency are well taken. Attorney General Pam Bondi previously claimed she had the Epstein client list sitting on her desk. In Epstein parlance, this was taken to mean that there was a list of elite political figures, academics, and businessmen for whom Epstein procured underage girls. But no such document has ever been released, and FBI Director Kash Patel subsequently stated that there is no one else involved in Epstein's sex crimes. Most people demanding more answers about Epstein have alleged a vast and sinister conspiracy involving not just Epstein, but other powerful abusers. At yesterday's House Judiciary hearing, lawmakers accused Bondi of failing not just Epstein's victims, hundreds of young women victimized by Epstein, and his associates. Now, if there are other men who sexually abused underage girls, the public ought to know about it. But that remains an open question since none of the files substantiate that idea that Epstein procured underage girls for a cabal of sexual abusers. Files do, however, reveal the names of people who met with Epstein, who took money from Epstein, or who continued to email with Epstein over the years. These people are not accused of crimes. In many cases, the idea that the named individual did something particularly bad seems to spring from a misconception. In other words, releasing the files has resulted, in my view, in some real-world harms for undeserving people. One of those folks is a man named Mark Tramo. Tramo is an associate adjunct professor of neurology at the University of California, Los Angeles. Whether he will remain in that position is unknown. A sign-wielding woman has reportedly camped herself outside the building where he works and has demanded that UCLA fire him. What was Tramo's crime? Nothing. No one accused him of any crime whatsoever. His moral failing, according to his critics, is that he emailed Epstein with some frequency over the years, including about his scientific research in areas of academic interest. In one such email, he mentioned reading a study that found, quote, a newborn will suck on a pacifier more vigorously if the baby hears his own mother's voice rather than some other woman's. Judging by the reaction on X, social media users found that email highly incriminating. It's what the woman with the sign was referencing when she was screaming at the department that Tramo should lose his job. Now, the conservative writer, Rod Dreher, he's with the woman, writing, God bless her. God bless this woman. What kind of monster must Mark Tramo be? I think people seem to have imagined that the professor was giving Epstein advice about something very graphic and sexual. That notion is patently absurd. He was a professor of neurology and of music. He'd co-authored articles on the effects of music on premature babies and giving them care. He'd received funding from Epstein to create a research institution for the study of music and the brain. The idea that he was assisting Epstein in sexual abuse of babies instead of just sharing an interesting fact related to his area of academic expertise, that strikes me as extremely far-fetched. Frankly, and I'm just going to say it, the idea that Epstein himself would have been interested in this knowledge for disgusting sexual reasons is also doubtful. He was convicted of sexually abusing teenage girls. There's no evidence he had a proclivity for babies. Nevertheless, since Tramo's communications with Epstein continued after the disgraced financier's 2008 incarceration for sexual misconduct, he's among the names of people considered to have associated with a known abuser. And in statements to the media, he denied having knowledge of Epstein's specific crime, saying he thought Epstein had been convicted of prostitution. He said, quote, I myself had not heard anything about statutory rape or minors being involved. I never saw him with young girls. I never visited the island. I never flew in his plane. I was introduced to him by the Harvard provost. He donated several millions to Harvard and was dangling a lot more, end quote. It's unclear if UCL is taking any action against Tramo, though the university website did remove his profile page on its media list of designated field experts. UCLA did not immediately respond to my request for comment. In the meantime, Tramo told me via email he's been besieged with hate mail, including death threats. Now, Tramo, for what it's worth, asserts he did not have specific knowledge about the nature of Epstein's crimes, the details of which we have to remember were mostly unknown to the public until 2018, thanks to an expose in the Miami Herald. Massie, however, takes the view anyone associating with Epstein after 2018 is fair game. Take a look at that interview again.
If you were associating with Jeffrey Epstein after 2008, you were associating with a known convicted sex offender who had wild parties. He's not the most savory character. We found from the audio with Ehud Barak, he was kind of a fixer. And I'm sorry if that hurts your reputation. Maybe you should have thought of that before you associated with a convicted sex offender.
Is that fair? You be the judge. So we have to remember there is this period of time from 2008 to 2018. Yes, Jeffrey Epstein is convicted of sexual crimes, but we're now using, I think, a little bit of hindsight. He did not become a household name. We did not all know who he was and what exactly he had done for the most part until 2018. And I think we're a little bit using today's level of knowledge and insight into how depraved he was and casting some level of judgment on people who might not have had reason to know. And this was a good example of this, because people are screaming at this man that email indicates he was advising Epstein on how to sexually abuse babies. Come on now.
Well, I don't know. It's disgusting to think about.
Obviously,
I think morally for Tramo, unfortunately, you make a decision to spend time or email with or collect money from somebody who is convicted of solicitation of prostitution, but not only prostitution of minors in 2008. If I'm collecting a lot of money from somebody like that, I certainly would see their background, who I'm taking money from, and understand that. So his relationship was a little bit different since he wanted him to fully fund, you said, his research, and I'm just taking your word for it because I don't know that much about Tremo. But if that's the case, I think he, out of all people, it's not like a friend like you and I go get a drink and I need to know your whole history. No, we're getting a drink. This is somebody who you plan to do business with. So generally, in a business sense, I know pretty much who I'm going to do business with, whether it's huge companies, small companies, or a person. So I'm not going to pretend like because the world didn't know that the person doing business didn't know. I do think that, there's this huge thing about what we're seeing Congress doing right now with Epstein files, about how much emphasis they're putting into it, about seeing what Ro Khanna is saying and listening to the conversations that they're having and criticizing Pam Bondi. And I think that it's warranted. When I watched them speak yesterday about after the hearing about what they felt, they were really just trying to say that they are not doing this for political theater, and I genuinely believe them. I believe that Massie is actually speaking to the victims and trying to figure out what's up, and I think that he's looking at all administrations, which is what I appreciate. Pam Bondi kept asking, "Why are you skipping over Merrick Garland? Why are you skipping over Obama's administration and other people besides me?" And he was like, "I don't care how far this goes."
That's ridiculous. She's trying to just.
I don't think
move blame elsewhere. No, I'm saying
Pam Bondi.
Yeah.
Oh, I was like,
no,
yeah.
No, I'm not
and I know we're going to talk about this more later,
but
I just really feel like their intentions are pure. So no matter, because I know a lot of your passion about this has become that people are just making a big to-do out of it. People who weren't largely interested in this a while ago are now interested in it, not only because Trump's name or Clinton's name comes up, but because now I know way more about it. I wasn't invested in the story; it wasn't my beat. But now that I'm in it and seeing what's going on, it's like, well, this does feel like there's a lot going on here. When you're seeing names on a document attached to, potential. This is a lot going on here. We're going to talk about it a lot more.
I've learned more too, but it's led me to different conclusions. I go, well, wait a minute, this wasn't exactly what I thought.